Okay, have a look at that demo one. Class base with int num1 is equal to 100, void display SOP num1. Simple. It's member and member function displays that member. Class sub extends base. Now this is which inheritance here between base and sub?
Single level.
Single in
It seems that
level.
it seems to be single level, but it's multi-level actually. Why? Because sub, sorry, who is a parent for base? Object. So hierarchy will be like that. Object, उसके नीचे base, उसके नीचे sub. By default in Java we have single level. By default, you just write class something, class my class, and then so that my class is also derived from object. So by default we have single level inheritance. यहाँ पे multi level है. हाँ? Sub extends base. Sub has got member and sub has got member function. Public class demo one. Even though demo one class is not that important for discussion, it is just for hosting that main function. But यहाँ पे भी discuss कर सकते हैं. Demo one का parent कौन है? Object. Okay. Now here, base is a parent and sub is a child. Let us concentrate in base and sub. Let us not discuss object class for the time being. Object class का discussion आएगा बाद में. So base is a parent and sub is a child. And when we create object of sub, now object creation we have seen many times. How to create one object, how to create multiple objects, how to create array of objects, everything we have seen. Why this object creation is special? Why this object creation is special? Because this is the object of child class. So in case of inheritance, when you create object of child class, what happens? What happens? Notice that base class has got num1 10 and subclass has got num2 20. So I will show you one diagram here, rough diagram, and then I will show you proper diagram. So when you say sub s1 is equal to new sub, what happens? What happens? S1. S1. S1 is a reference. Now you say, what is great in that? New sub. No, new sub, but sub is a child class. So what happens in case of inheritance? When you create object of sub, this is the object of sub. This is the object of sub. Which S1 will refer to, no doubt about that. Which S1 will refer to, no doubt about that. But the question here is, what does this object contain? This object contains object of
Base.
parent class. Object of parent class, base. Object of parent class. That object of parent class has got num1. Actually, object of parent class also contains object of object class. But as I told you, I'm not going to consider object class for the time being. So base contains num1. What's the value of num1? 10. And sub has got its own member num2. Num2, whose value is 20. Whose value is 20. So this is the important point. When you create object of subclass, that object contains the base, that object contains the object of parent class. And now, using that S1, what can you access? Using that S1, what can you access? You can access display 1. You can access display 2. No surprise in that, because display 2 is a method of subclass itself, but you can access method of parent class as well. Why? Because that is accessible. It's not private. Now I'm saying it's not private, so you should ask what is that? If it is not private, what is that? So what is that?
Default.
Up till now I used to tell you that what is that, don't ask me. Wherever public is written, public. Wherever private is written, private. But nothing is written, what is that? I used to tell you that don't ask me. We will discuss afterwards. But now that time has come where we can discuss display 1 is not given private, public. So what is that? So that discussion we are going to do, and that is accessibility modifiers in Java, day 3. So for the timing, we'll go out of this folder, access specifiers in Java. This table is very, very important. There are 4 accessibility modifiers finally in Java. They are private, protected, public, and default. Now default is not a keyword here. When you don't mention anything, it's a default accessibility. And how you can understand their accessibility? Private, very simple. Same class, private can be accessible only in that class where it is defined. Rest of the places private cannot be accessible. Public can be accessible everywhere. Challenging are 2 accessibility modifiers, default and protected. Default, I repeat, whenever you don't mention anything, it is default. So what is the visibility of that default? Same class, yes. Subclass in the same package, yes. Different class in the same package. Different class means which is not a subclass, but in the same package, yes. Subclass in different package. It's possible that your subclass is in a different package. You are in one package and your subclass is in different package. That is possible. But even in that case, no. Subclass in different package, no. Different class in different package, out of question. So you can say that default accessibility means within package only. Once you go outside package, default members cannot be accessible. Just look at that rule. Then we have a separate diagram also to understand. So within a package, everywhere default can be accessible. But once you go outside the package, you can't access that. So default is also called as package accessible modifier. And then protected. Same class, yes. Subclass in same package, yes. Different class in same package, yes. Different class means which is not subclass. Huh? So yes, yes, everywhere in the same package. Subclass in different package, yes. I would like to highlight this point. So that means protected can be accessible in a different package. On what condition? That class should be subclass of this class. Then you can access. If the class is not subclass, you can't access. So look at protected also. Try to differentiate between protected and default here. Because private and public are straightforward. Private members are not accessible outside the class, and public can be accessible everywhere. Yeah. Make sure you have followed the difference between default and protected as far as accessibility is concerned. Is that clear?
Yes.
For some days, while you are practicing Java, you should have this table with you. Minimize. So whenever you have doubt, you will open this table and see what is accessibility. Okay, so here we have access specifiers info. What we discussed just now in that table, we can see with the help of animation. So there are 4 slides, access specifiers info. Pack 1, package. Pack 2, package. Class A, private int num. Class B extends A, child class in the same package. Different class in the same package. Class C. Why? Because class C does not extend A. So it's a different class. Class X extends A. This is what I was talking about. Your A is in pack 1 and your X, which is a child of A, in pack 2. Which is quite possible in Java. We have got examples in case of James Gosling code also. That one class, parent class is in one package and child class is in different package. Possible. So class X extends A. Class Y, which is not a child class of A, different class in different package. So now what do you think? Before I click, this num will be accessed where?
In the same class A only.
Same class.
Pack 1 only.
Correct.
Private.
The same class. So private can be accessible only in the class where it is created. Now class A has got only int num. Nothing is mentioned. So which accessibility modifier?
Default.
Package.
Default.
Same package.
Accessible, yes.
Yes.
Accessible, yes. Accessible.
No.
So yes in same package. So default means package accessible. Within a package, everywhere you can access. But once you go outside the package, even if you are in a child class of A, you can't access. That is default. Package accessible modifier. Scenario given is same. What's the difference? Protected.
Yes.
Except Y
Protected
everywhere.
same class, yes.
Yes.
Class
In the class Y, in the pack 2.
Yeah. Class C also. Class X may be. Why? Because X is a child of A. And class Y may. So that is the difference between protected member and default member. Protected member can be accessed outside the package provided it is a child class. But default member cannot be accessed. And the last, no need to check that.
Yes.
Public.
Everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Everywhere, yes.
Everywhere. Okay. So coming back to our examples, demo 1. What is display one, accessibility, default. So default can be accessed in the same package. We are in the same package. So s1 dot display one. S1 dot display. And the diagram for this code is here. Whenever you create object of child class object always contains the object of base class. This concept is same across all object-oriented programming languages. Okay. Demo 2. Now in this example, we will get to understand the concept of constructor in case of inheritance. As such, concept of constructor we know. What do we know? When we create object of a class, first instance members are allocated memory and then constructor gets called. Two types of constructors, default constructor, parameterized constructor. When you don't write any constructor in the class, compiler provides default constructor. The moment you write any constructor, compiler does not provide default constructor. That all you know. But now here what is special? What is special is constructor invocation in case of inheritance. So have a look at that class base with num1 and display1, and for a change there is a default constructor. There is a change default constructor. Class sub extends base child class int num2 void display2, and then there is a constructor, default constructor. And now you are saying sub s1 is equal to new sub. Memory diagram remains same, but then now what is the concept here? When you say sub s1 is equal to new sub, control goes to subclass constructor. But from there, now pay attention here. Control goes to subclass constructor, but from there it goes to base class default constructor. So that means in case of inheritance, when you instantiate child class, control goes to child class constructor, and from there it tries to call base class default constructor. Base class default constructor only. So when you say sub s1 is equal to new sub, control first goes here, and from there it goes to base class default constructor. So यहाँ पे output. Look at that output in base noir, in sub noir. Now here, I would like to tell you one very important thing. When you look at in base noir first line, in sub noir second line, you know what conclusion people make? When you create object of sub, control goes to base class constructor, and then it comes to subclass constructor. Wrong. Wrong. Completely wrong. When you create object of sub, ऐसे बोलो, control goes to subclass constructor, and from there it invokes base class default constructor. That's why this statement comes first, and now you know call stack. Control goes back to the statement from where call had made. So control goes here. So that's why in sub noir. Never ever say that when you create object of sub, control goes to base class constructor and then control goes to subclass constructor. Wrong edge, wrong statement. When you create object of sub, control goes to subclass constructor. But from there, it calls base class default constructor. It executes the statements of that base class constructor, and then it comes back in the then it comes back in the subclass constructor. That's why output is like this.
Sir,
Yeah.
can you repeat that line again, sir? The last one, like
When
the
you
object
create
is
object of subclass control goes to subclass constructor, but from there it calls base class default constructor, and then it comes back. बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है. Whenever you create object of subclass constructor invokes base class default constructor. Subclass constructor invokes base class default constructor, ये बोलना बहुत जरूरी है. Very, very important. Clear?
Sir, only default, na?
Only default, yes.
Okay.
We will discuss what if default constructor is not there in the base class. तभी क्या होगा? We will discuss that.
Okay, sir.
I think वो कहीं पे लिखा हुआ है. Constructor invocation. ठीक है, it's not written. I just mention it here. ऐसे. When you instantiate subclass control goes to
class constructor.
class constructor. That can be any constructor. Huh? The way you have created subclass. If you have created subclass object without passing anything, so control will go to subclass default constructor. If you have created subclass object by passing some value, so control will go to subclass parameter constructor. So whichever constructor. And then subclass constructor will try to invoke default constructor of parent class or base class by default. When you instantiate subclass,
Sir, even if in the case of parameterized constructor, it will invoke the default constructor of parent class.
which parameterized constructor, subclass or base class?
Subclass.
No matter which constructor is there in subclass, it by default looks for default constructor in the base class. Now,
Okay,
only thing we have to discuss is what if base class does not have default constructor? It has got parameterized constructor. तभी क्या होगा? And that we will discuss after a small break. Huh?
Okay, sir.
It's 12:32. We'll come back by